A referendum is a direct and universal vote in which an entire electorate is invited to vote on a particular proposal and can have nationwide or local forms. This may result in the adoption of a new policy or specific law. In some countries, it is synonymous with a plebiscite or a vote on a ballot question. Some definitions of plebiscite suggest it is a type of vote to change the constitution or government of a country. The word referendum is often a catch-all, used for both legislative referrals and initiatives. Referendum is the gerundive form of the Latin verb refero. Literally, to carry back, is unsupportable according to the rules of both Latin and English grammar. The use of referenda as a plural form is posited hypothetically as either a gerund or a gerundive by the Oxford English Dictionary, which rules out such usage in both cases as follows. Referendums is logically preferable as a plural form, meaning ballots on one issue, etc. In Australia, a referendum is often said to be a vote to change the federal constitution and plebiscite, a vote which does not affect the federal constitution. However, this is erroneous as not all federal referendums have been on constitutional matters, and state votes that likewise do not affect either the federal or state constitution are frequently said to be referendums. Historically, they are used by Australians interchangeably, and a plebiscite was considered another name for a referendum. In Ireland, plebiscite referred to the vote to adopt its constitution, but a subsequent vote to amend the constitution is called a referendum, as is a poll of the electorate on a non-constitutional bill. The name and use of the referendum is thought to have originated in the Swiss canton of Graubünden as early as the 16th century. The term plebiscite has a generally similar meaning in modern usage and comes from the Latin plebiscita, which originally meant a decree of the concilium plebis, the popular assembly of the Roman Republic. Today, a referendum can also often be referred to as a plebiscite, but in some countries the two terms are used differently to refer to votes with differing types of legal consequences. For example, Australia defines referendum as a vote to change the constitution and plebiscite as a vote that does not affect the constitution. In contrast, Ireland has only ever held one plebiscite, which was the vote to adopt its constitution, and every other vote has been called a referendum. Plebiscite has also been used to denote a non-binding vote count, such as the one held by Nazi Germany to approve, in retrospect, the so-called Anschluss with Austria. The question being not "do you permit?" but rather "do you approve?" single quote of that which has most definitely already occurred. The term referendum covers a variety of different meanings. A referendum can be binding or advisory. In some countries, different names are used for these two types of referendum. Referendums can be further classified by who initiates them. A mandatory referendum is a class of referendum required to be voted on if certain conditions are met or for certain government actions to be taken. They do not require any signatures from the public. In areas that use referendums, a mandatory referendum is commonly used as a legally required step for ratification for constitutional changes, ratifying international treaties and joining international organizations, and certain types of public spending. Some countries or local governments choose to enact any constitutional amendments with a mandatory referendum. These include Australia, Ireland, Switzerland, Denmark, and 49 of the 50 US states. Many localities require a referendum in order for the government to issue certain bonds, raise taxes above a specified amount, or take on certain amounts of debt. In California, for example, the state government may not borrow more than $300,000 without a public vote in a statewide bond proposition. Switzerland has mandatory referendums on enacting international treaties that have to do with collective security and joining a supranational community. This type of referendum has only occurred once in the country's history. A failed attempt in 1986 for Switzerland to join the United Nations. A hypothetical type of referendum, first proposed by Immanuel Kant, is a referendum to approve a declaration of war in a war referendum. It has never been enacted by any country. but was debated in the United States in the 1930s as the Ludlow Amendment. An optional referendum is a class of referendums that is put to the vote as a result of a demand. This may come from the executive branch, legislative branch, or a request from the people. Voluntary referendums, also known as legislative referrals, are initiated by the legislature or government. These may be advisory questions to gauge public opinion or binding questions of law. An initiative is a citizen-led process to propose or amend laws or constitution.